Cool. How are we all doing today? How's it going? Hot day. We have a special format here. Obviously, we do a bar talk. So we're going to start with a small presentation, and then we're going to go into a panel, one panel on Hyperliquid, and then we'll have three other panels around yield innovation, institutional adoption, and so on and so forth. So before we start, quick question. Who of you has used Hyperliquid already? All right. How many of you have used Hyper EVM? Not so many. All right, cool. So I want to do a quick presentation. We at Buenos we are building a liquid looping product under the Looping Collective, and we started on Hyperliquid. So I want to go a little bit into like why Hyperliquid is a perfect breeding ground for new DeFi primitives like liquid looping. And basically, I want to go a little bit into what is unique about Hyperliquid, what is unique about liquid looping, and what is that, and how they match together perfectly, basically. So to me, like Hyperliquid feels like a new frontier area in crypto. It's super exciting. There's actually like a lot of very wealthy users, because it's mostly people probably from the US that couldn't trade on like perp exchanges from here, so they moved on Hyperliquid, and they have a lot of capital. And it's also new users that are not necessarily familiar with DeFi already, so it brings like a whole new user base. And Hyperliquid kind of serves as a liquidity hub. Like there's a lot of liquidity going on, and that's why the Hyper EVM is so exciting, because the Hyper EVM can tap into all of that liquidity on Hyperliquid. So it feels like a land of opportunity right now. It's like all full organic traction on the Hyper EVM. Like there are no grants, nothing, and that's really exciting. There's so many teams building like just from organic instinct, basically. And I think Hyperliquid is achieving the holy grail where others have failed. Like what, for example, Binance have tried with Binance Smart Chain, and Crypto.com with Kronos Chain, and Coinbase with Base. You can see like the TVL from Binance Smart Chain and from Kronos, like they're not looking like super healthy. And that's mostly because on like Binance and Binance Smart Chain, they're like totally different products, basically. You have the Binance DA exchange, and it's totally segregated from Binance Smart Chain. You can't use any things from Binance Smart Chain and do operations on Binance, and vice versa. It's like it's two separate products, and it's very, very disconnected, basically. So they play another league. Hyperliquid is built different, because Hyperliquid, like the Hypercore, the exchange and the Hyper EVM, they share the same backend, so they basically allow seamless integration, and this enables like very, very interesting use cases. So one example is like the HLP Vault on Hyperliquid, which is the Hyperliquidity provider that does like market making services on Hyperliquid, and earns a yield on behalf of the users. And we actually, with the Looping Collective, last week we launched the wrapped HLP, WHLP product, which basically wraps HLP into a fully like liquid and composable token on the Hyper EVM. So up until now, basically HLP was just like a very limited strategy, only accessible like on Hyperliquid, but now wrapped HLP makes that like a fully composable token, basically like a very sophisticated trading strategy, tokenized, that can then be like further utilized in DeFi, on lending protocols, on DEXs, and so on. That's very exciting, because the EVM can tap into these the liquidity that's on Hypercore, basically. Obviously, the next step there is then also looping wrapped HLP. So you can even take like the trading strategy from Hyperliquid, loop it on the EVM, and this creates like very, very interesting financial use cases. And now we're getting a little bit there, like why Hyperliquid is a perfect breeding ground for new narrative like liquid looping. It's basically, or like, let's take a step back, like what is liquid looping? And in order to look at this, like a wise man once said, arbitrage is the art of spotting inefficiencies, and looping is the craft of compounding them. So basically, looping is just doing arbitrage, primarily between like staking and lending markets. And that's because like it's very like the risk is not well understood. It's like arbitraging the actual and the perceived risk. And that's why you can achieve like a higher yield with just marginally higher risk, significantly higher yield with marginally higher risk, which is very exciting. And liquid looping brings that to a next level. It takes like these sophisticated, like very predefined arbitrage strategies at like a very risk-contained spectrum and makes it like fully liquid and composable in the DeFi space. So it takes like what worked very well on liquid staking. It's like taking staking and making it composable and liquid. Liquid staking has been very successful on Ethereum already. Taking the same type of strategy, making it liquid, so you get like maximum capital efficiency. And I see that basically as the evolution of staking, from traditional staking to liquid staking and liquid looping. Staking itself was great, but it's very, very rigid. It has a low yield and like no liquidity, basically. Liquid staking solved the liquidity issue, but it's still like relatively low yield. And liquid looping now provides significantly higher APY at like a very risk-contained spectrum with the same liquidity added benefit. So yeah, it's a great way of getting like the highest capital efficiency with like just marginally higher risk. And yeah, so looping so far is mostly like the arbitrage between staking and lending. And the great thing, and this is why Hyperliquid is such a unique breeding ground for this narrative, is because on Hyperliquid, it's not about just staking and DeFi, it's about finance overall. Like the HLP example, for example, is a very sophisticated trading strategy on Hyperliquid that can now be looped. Like this was never possible anywhere else. So far, like looping was very limited to like this staking and DeFi, and on Hyperliquid you can achieve very, very interesting use cases with these trading strategies and tapping into the liquidity of what feels like a centralized exchange experience, basically. So Hyperliquid is really changing the game here and also brings much more utility for looping and liquid looping strategies. And at the Looping Collective, we are building the liquid looping token standard on Hyperliquid and beyond. So who is the Looping Collective? The Looping Collective is basically a community of users, builders, and ecosystem partners that co-create, manage, and build and make these liquid looping tokens big and can align on them as well. Because if there's many different looping products, it's very hard to find liquidity for it. So we need to align on one standard that we have like a lot of liquidity, a lot of composability, and so on. And in order to do that, we need to bring many parties together. So we launched the Looping Collective from the stake mode side together with Nucleus. And we have many other partners that are also part of the collective that serve either as distributor of the products, as liquid funds to provide capital, basically, as validators, liquid staking protocols, and managers of the products that we are building. We already brought on many great partners, and we're looking to bring on more partners to build the liquid looping token standard together. And the products we launched so far is LoopType, which is an automated looping protocol on Hyperliquid. We hit over 50 million TVL in just 2 months. We had a lot of great organic traction. And LoopType also serves as like I call it like the Ouroboros of the Hyper EVM. There's like 50 million TVL on LoopType, but there's over 150 million in working capital that is deployed in the different lending protocols. So the more hype you give into it, it multiplies that hype and like bootstraps the whole Hyper EVM ecosystem, like providing even further liquidity, basically. It's a liquidity multiplier in that sense that really bootstrap a large part of the Hyper EVM so far. And will continue to bootstrap additional use cases across the Hyper EVM. And the received token from LoopType, LHype, is also the most liquid token on the Hyper EVM. There are pools on HyperSwap and KittenSwap. The biggest pools on there are like Hype, LHype pools. LHype is also very well integrated. Hyperfire, a sponsor of the event here, They have an isolated market where you can borrow stablecoins against L-Hype. So it really like proves the narrative of like building a standard, like a liquid looping token that can then be swapped in and out and integrated and used for further leverage, basically, by borrowing stablecoins against it. The second product we just launched last week is Wrapped HAP. And just an example, like the HAP, like in May 2025, it achieved like a 15.5% APY, like total return in just 1 month, annualized. And over the last year, it's like 17.2%. So it's very like, it's sustainable yield that can be generated at scale. There's like, on the HAP vault, there's 400 million in liquidity. That's generating like this very, very high APY. And now for the first time, this is like a wrapped token that can be further utilized on the Hyper EVM for additional use cases, leverage, and so on and so forth. And again, it's a very risk-contained strategy that provides users the optionality to take leverage against it, to swap in and out of it, and take more risk if they want to achieve even higher yield. And this is also where wrapped HAP obviously can also be looped then. So it creates even higher yield, basically. And yeah, we want to work with everyone at the Looping Collective, liquid funds, distributors, validators, managers, liquid staking protocols. Just come to us, talk to us. We want to build the liquid looping token standard together on Hyperliquid and beyond, and looking forward to do that with many of you to create higher yield, significantly higher yield at marginally higher risk. And yeah, full composability and so on. And I think Hyperliquid is the perfect breeding ground because it basically brings together, not just arbitrage between staking and DeFi, but also like sophisticated trading strategies on the Hyperliquid exchange. So yeah, very excited, and just come talk to us. Thank you.